Welcome to Video Games Recap. Today we will talk about the story of the video game Amazing Spider-Man. The events in this game follows the events of the Amazing Spider-Man movie, after the defeat of Connor, also known as the Lizard. We start with Gwen taking Peter Parker into OSCORP building to investigate a rumor that they are continuing Dr. Connor's work. They go down the basement and see a rhino-looking humanoid animal being moved around which almost attacks them. They are then joined by Alistair Smythe, who is currently heading OSCORP, and warns them not to be there. He says that the being that almost attacked them was a cross-species which was created in a lab and they are trying to get rid of it together with other similar beings. He also tells them that he has developed robots that will attack any of the cross-species if they get out, so they do not have to worry about the animals attacking the city. While walking around the basement laboratory, they notice that the animals start getting aggressive when Peter Parker is near them. One of the animals being transported gets aggressive and gets out of its cage and attacks Gwen, infecting her in the process. She says they cannot use the antidote used in the movie because this time the virus has mutated, so it will not work. Peter takes her to a quarantine area and tells her he will try to get an antidote made, but he must first stop the animals which have now escaped and are attacking the city. While out in the city stopping the animals that have escaped, Dr. Smythe releases his robot which was made to attack cross-species. A big spider-like machine which upon release has also noted that Spider-Man is a cross-species and starts attacking him. Spider-Man defeats the machine but notes that the machine probably has done way more damage than what the cross-species could even have done. After the fight, Spider-Man visits Dr. Connor, aka the Lizard, who is now in prison, and discusses the possibility of creating a new antidote for the new strain. The doctor agrees and Spider-Man gets him out of prison by breaking him out. During the breakout, some prisoners try to escape as well due to a fault with the locking system, but Spider-Man captures most of them straight away by beating them up. Spider-Man then takes Dr. Connor to an apartment that he was house-sitting to allow him to work on the antidote. On the news, the reporter is reporting that Spider-Man has broken out Dr. Connor from prison and that he is a dangerous fugitive. Dr. Connor tells Peter that to create his lab he needs information that he stored on a hard drive at OSCORP. Spider-Man then calls Gwen, who is still in the quarantine area at OSCORP, to tell her about breaking out Dr. Connor, and she tells him she already knows and that she has been joined in the quarantine by Smythe and other scientists, and that Smythe is working on something to deal with the cross-species that have escaped. Spider-Man then goes to OSCORP to retrieve the hard drive with the information for Dr. Connor to use. While in the building, he meets a reporter called Whitney Chong, who is also in the building investigating the cross-species. They work together to get the hard drive, and Whitney allows Spider-Man to take the hard drive in exchange of taking pictures of the damages made by the cross-species around the city. Back to the apartment, Spider-Man calls Gwen, but the call is picked up by Smythe, who tells him that the antidote he is working on kills the host as well as the infection, so it is more of a poison than a cure. Dr. Connor then tells Spider-Man that for him to create a cure he needs samples from the cross-species themselves, so Spider-Man goes into the sewer and fights two cross-species and takes their samples. After taking the samples, he is attacked by another one of Smythe's robots which sees him a cross-species, and they fight around the city causing more damage, but Spider-Man comes out on top. Back to the apartment, the news is showing that people are getting infected by the cross-species and they are in turn infecting other individuals. Spider-Man then calls Gwen to tell her that the antidote is almost finished, but she tells him that she does not trust Dr. Connor as he is the one who started this whole thing in the first place. Dr. Connor then gives Spider-Man the antidote to go and give Gwen while he starts mass-producing it for the population. Spider-Man then takes the antidote to Gwen, but before he could give her, Dr. Smythe snatches it and injects himself. He seems fine at first, but then he quickly loses power in his legs and becomes a paraplegic. He curses at Spider-Man and accuses him and Dr. Connor of trying to poison him. He then releases more cross-species and robots to fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man fights a scorpion cross-species being and escapes OSCORP. Outside the building, Dr. Smythe sends a big worm-like robot the size of 20-story building to fight Spider-Man. Spider-Man defeats the robots with even more damage to the city. After escaping, Spider-Man starts to wonder why the antidote did not work and questions whether Dr. Connor was playing him all along. Spider-Man then goes back to the apartment and finds that Dr. Connor is not there. He starts getting worried that he has been played when Dr. Connor shows up to tell him that he had gone out to see his family but was unable to confront them, so he just observed them. Spider-Man then gets into an argument with Dr. Connor on why the antidote did not work, and Dr. Connor sya he was certain it will work. Spider-Man then loses consciousness due to the injuries that he got from fighting Scorpion and the worm-like robot. When he wakes up, Dr. Connor tells him that he has figured it out, that the cure is Spider-Man's blood since he is also a cross-species. Gwen then calls Spider-Man to tell him that Smythe has finished his serum and he is holding them hostage to use them as test subjects. Spider-Man then rushes to OSCORP building with the new version of the antidote. He fights a number of guards and robots that are being controlled by Smythe. Spider-Man then gives the antidote to the scientist and Gwen, and it works. Spider-Man then leaves Gwen to try and find Dr. Smythe and get him to stop controlling the robots. He soon gets a call from Gwen telling him that Dr. Connor has used the intel from OSCORP to determine that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and he is the #1 enemy of his, including Dr. Connor. Spider-Man quickly rushes to the apartment where he finds Dr. Connor has been kidnapped. He is attacked by a huge robot which Dr. Smythe has called a Spider Slayer, but he manages to defeat it. He soon after gets a call from Dr. Smythe telling him he knows about his secret identity and that he is holding Dr. Connor hostage, and if he wants to see him again he will go at the coordinates that he will send. We then see Dr. Smythe, who is now on a wheelchair, talking to Dr. Connor that his nanobot technology will save the city. He does not care that it is a poison. Dr. Connor offers to use his antidote which works, but Smythe accuses Connor of trying to get back into OSCORP by offering a solution to the problem he created. Spider-Man manages to rescue Dr. Connor but himself is captured by Dr. Smythe. Dr. Smythe then takes Spider-Man and injects him with the nanobot antidote that he has been working on. Dr. Smythe then releases him in order to observe how the antidote works. The antidote works and Spider-Man loses his power and becomes weak, but he is still able to use his web shooter and escapes OSCORP building by solving some puzzles. Out in the city, Spider-Man notices that the whole city has become heavily damaged with lots of people infected and multiple buildings in fire as they are attacked by Smythe robots which are trying to terminate any infected individual. The whole place looks like an apocalypse. Battered and bruised, Spider-Man receives a call from Dr. Connor to find him in his old laboratory in the sewers. When he gets there he is obviously tired and without any powers. He finds Gwen there as well as Dr. Connor and tells them he has been given the nanobot antidote. Dr. Connor, upon seeing that Peter is in no way to fight, suggests he turns himself into the lizard in order to fight the robots and prevent any further damage to the city. Gwen and Spider-Man oppose this idea, but he injects himself anyway, seeing no other option. He then tells Spider-Man to figure out a solution as he is only able to control the lizard state for a specific period of time before it takes over. Spider-Man then loses consciousness. When he wakes up he is told that his heart stopped and Gwen had to use defibrillator to bring him back to life. He is then told that Smythe is attacking the city and that the lizard is trying to stop him. He leaves the sewer and goes out to the city where he is picked up by a helicopter flown by Whitney Chong as he is too weak to swing himself towards the Dr. Smythe's robot. On his way to the fight, Gwen calls him to tell him that he needs to electrocute himself in order to kill the nanobots in his body and gain back his power. When he reaches the inner city together with the lizard, they fight and defeat the big robot created by Smythe, and Spider-Man regains his power by electrocuting himself on the power generators for the big robot. After his defeat, Dr. Smythe realizes that he has done a lot of damages and has a breakdown. He is soon taken away by police officers. During the fight, Dr. Connor loses control and the lizard takes over. It then escapes into the sewers. Spider-Man then follows the lizard into the sewer and realizes that it has taken Gwen hostage. He fights the lizard in 2 areas and manages to get an antidote and inject it into the lizard, thereby turning it back into Dr. Connor. While at home relaxing after the big fight, Spider-Man learns on the news that Dr. Smythe has escaped from custody. The game then cuts to Dr. Smythe walking around OSCORP and releasing one of his cross-species killer robot. He walks in front of it while the robots warns that it has detected a cross-species and it will terminate it. Fade to black.